But we've got a man waiting. Nikhil Pawar has been waiting from the beginning, and I think we need to give him some time to speak. So, Nikhil, the next 20 to 30 seconds is yours. Go ahead.
That's it. So, Milind, I'm really, really disappointed to hear that you don't think that Section 66A is a bad law, but more specifically to the IT Act, because if you look at the IT rules, your ministry has the power to change the rules. For the IT Act and etc., you need either the courts or parliaments to do it. But you still haven't amended them despite promises being made to amend them, right? And at the same time, you're setting up a centralized monitoring system for tracking GPRS usage, SMSs, phone calls, location. You have a social media cell that's been set up in Bombay that's tracking what people are downloading and torrents, and we've read reports on that. So do you realize the kind of legal infrastructure, the policy that you're creating, the impact that it has on freedom of speech and privacy and the security of individuals in this country? Because you may not have have a bad intent, but the government's to follow. You're leaving us with a potential disaster. I mean, how do I know that my government or my police is not going to abuse the power that the laws that your government is creating at this point in time and the rules that you're not amending? How do I feel secure about it? What are you doing?
Nikhil, it's a very valid question, but I regret to inform you that you're misinformed about a lot of things, and I'll try and correct your perceptions that you have, misconceptions that you have. Number one, with regards to 66A, very quickly, look, no law in any country is perfect. We are always open to changes. But as I said, this 66A was not done arbitrarily or in haste. It was done after a long and arduous process involving experts, stakeholders, industry, a department standing committee, eventually parliament. When we saw that it's being misused, keep in mind, 66A came into effect in 2009. It's only recently that we saw cases of it being misused. We immediately rectified that with this advisory. So laws may not necessarily be bad, but as we all know in India, sometimes implementation of the laws, enforcement of those laws is where there's real trouble. We've corrected that problem. We have made sure, and even the Supreme Court recently observed that state governments should implement the advisory that we've issued to state governments in January 2013. So one second. So let me finish. Just 1 second. I don't believe so, therefore, that the law is where the problem exists. But as I said, we are open to suggestions. The implementation was a problem. We have prevented that from happening, and that's why after January, for the last 6 months, you haven't seen cases as you did see in Palghar and other places. Now coming to this issue you raised, which most people may not be aware of because it's slightly technical, it's called the Central Monitoring System. That's something that we are setting up in the Ministry of Communications and IT, and we're setting it up at a government level. What does this do, and why are we doing this? We are setting up this Central Monitoring System for precisely the reason you mentioned. It's precisely being set up to safeguard your privacy and ensure that and protect our national security as a country. And I'll very briefly explain how the traditional system works today. If today, before CMS comes into effect, if a law enforcement agency believes that XYZ individual is a potential terrorist and we need to monitor his phone conversations, the process which goes through the law enforcement agency, the Home Ministry of the state government or the government of India, eventually ends up at the doorstep of the mobile company. And the mobile company or industry is privy to something that I'm sure you would agree should be the exclusive domain of government. And they get to know about whose phone is being lawfully intercepted. What CMS is doing is CMS is completely eliminating that process, whereby the mobile company will have no knowledge about whose phone conversation is being intercepted. So one, it protects our national security because industry, which is largely the private sector in our country, will not know whose phone conversation is being intercepted. And I'm sure you'd agree that's potentially dangerous and harmful for national security and doesn't exist in most countries in the world which have large national security problems like we do. Now, from a privacy standpoint, today, I'm not saying it happens or is happening, and it would be illegal, of course, if it happens. But today, a mobile company, if they want to unlawfully intercept your conversations, Nikhil, they could without you knowing it. With the CMS, the mobile company cannot do that. Not only can the mobile company not do that with the CMS, but even the officer in charge of handling the CMS, who in fact is taking orders from the law enforcement agency to intercept a certain person's conversation, even that officer using technology, there's a safeguard built in which doesn't allow that officer to have access to that conversation. So actually, it's protecting your privacy. It's not, it's going to prevent any misuse, which we saw happen recently, and that's why people like Mr. Ratan Tata went to the court to ensure that not just his privacy, but future generations' privacy is protected. And that's one of the reasons why we're implementing CMS at a rapid pace, because it will protect your privacy, Nikhil. It will ensure that nobody can play hanky-panky, and two, it will ensure that only government, not the operator, the mobile company, is privy to any sensitive information in this country. So it's a misconception, it's misinformation, unfortunately, that we find on social media. You might find it in traditional forms of media also, but these are completely wrong. These are systems that exist around the world. These are systems using technology that have very strong built-in safeguards that will prevent anyone from government. Not today I'm sitting in this chair, tomorrow it could be someone else sitting in this chair. That will prevent any bureaucrat who's manning the CMS, that will prevent any politician from accessing anyone's information. In fact, you should rest assured that CMS is a good tool that will ensure you and protect your privacy.
Nikhil, 30 seconds response. We're really running out of time. Quick response.
But this and Aadhaar are both being done without India having a privacy law. So where is my privacy being protected? How am I protected from abuse of the system by the government in part? It's not just about telecom companies, it's about the government. I don't feel safe right now.
If you don't feel safe, unfortunately, that's a perception you have. I'm as prone to having a complaint against me for a post I put on my Facebook page or on Twitter. But we've corrected those systems. So I understand, for example, again, I guess you're talking about this safety part with regards to 66A. Yes, people did feel a sense of insecurity back in the day before we issued this advisory. But that should not exist today, because we will ensure that in the future, this law and this act is not misused by anyone, by a government functionary, by a politician, by a court of law, by a local policeman. We've put that safeguard in place. We've issued that advisory, and that's why it's not happening in the last 6 months. That's why the incidents we all heard about and we expressed outrage about in the last few months has been fixed. So as I said, no law in this country or in any country is perfect. The laws that we have in our country today only ensure parity between the offline space and online space, which I'm sure you'll agree have to exist. They are only ensuring parity between what exists globally and what should exist in India. Because we can't be one country like one of our neighbors that says we're going to ban certain sites or certain content. We don't want to get into that space. We only want to say that internet is a global medium. The laws that exist in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, for instance, those are the laws, those are the wordings we've used to draft our own laws. But in the implementation, I do agree, Nikhil, I'll give you this, that there were problems in the implementation of the law, and that did lead to wrongful arrests, misuse of the law, and that did create fear amongst people. But I want to reassure people through this Google Plus Hangout that just like I'm an avid user of social media, you have no reason to be afraid. You should use this medium as much as you like to share information for fun, for educational purposes. But of course, the things that you can't do offline, you can't do online. If you can't make a provocative speech that's going to create a law and order problem offline, and there are IPC provisions that exist for you offline, the same do online. And that's something I'm sure any right-thinking individual would agree on, that we need to have parity with the offline space.